Hi guys, welcome to A Trip Through Don's Mind, episode 1 of my book review slash analysis series where I'm going to be reviewing and basically breaking down different ideas that I think authors are trying to convey through their books. And I'll try as much as possible not to give any spoilers for these videos for the book so that you can read the book and enjoy it and have the rush and suspense that the book has to offer. So I'm going to talk about The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. This is actually my first book that I read this year, which is the year that I actually started reading books. And so I got it from a teacher when I was in secondary school about 5 years ago, give or take. And I didn't know why he gave it to me. I believe it might have been my birthday, I'm not so sure. But he didn't tell me why I should read what the book is about, which I actually love because I don't like telling people, if I recommend a book or a movie, I want you to experience it raw. So he gave it to me. I didn't know what the book is about. So I didn't know why I didn't read it because, I was in the prime of my, teenage years. I was a delinquent. I didn't really care. But I think at the time he noticed that I needed some sort of direction. And I think that's what this book is about. It's about, are you able to recognize and be aware of what your dream is, and do you have the courage and the ability to pursue it 100%? And so with that said, let's get into the book and the ideas that I want to wrestle with. So the first idea that the book has to offer is, and I'll quote the book itself, one of the biggest lies ever told in life is that at some point you lose control of your life to this thing called fate. And so because of all the things tying you down, like responsibilities, family, kids, you no longer have the capacity to take on the risks that are necessary to pursue your dreams. And I do not fully agree with that sentiment or the idea that Paulo Coelho tries to convey through the book, because I think the ability to pursue your dreams or your passions or your goals, there is a relationship that has with the privilege or the life that you live, in terms of what country you're in, what part of the world you're in, what services you have access to, how good your general life is, right? And I think it's a privilege to be able to work in places that you think you want to. And you work there only because you want to, because of this thing that you think you are pursuing, your dream and goal. And I think that privilege isn't afforded to a lot of people. For example, I'm African, right? And most people in Africa are pushed towards things like medicine, engineering, because of the monetary benefit that it gives you. Not because you want to do it or because you enjoy or because it's something you're good at, but because you need to be the one to save your family and, that kind of thing. And so I don't really agree with that idea. I think it's a privilege, but I think that's the audience that he writes the book for, the Western audience. And I just happen to read it, and so I'm giving my opinion based on my perspective. The second thing he tries to convey in the book is this idea of happiness. And there's a huge industry for it. Everyone's trying to solve the problem of happiness. Everyone's trying to sell you a solution, right? A one fixed solution that will give you happiness. And I don't believe in it, but I think he gives you a very good sentiment or a good idea of how to achieve it. And so in the book, the main character Santiago at some point meets this mystical king, and he asks him, how do I become happy in life? And so he gives him this very interesting experiment where he tells him to basically take a spoon, put it in his mouth, put, I think, a drop of oil or something, or an egg, and he tells him to walk around his palace or the compound that the king lives in, to walk around with that spoon and make sure that whatever is on the spoon does not fall. And so he does, focusing on the egg, he walks around the whole palace, making sure that the egg does not fall or the drop of oil does not spill. And by the time he comes back to the king, he's like, yeah, I completed my mission. Here's the spoon. I didn't spill whatever he told me not to spill. And the king tells him, did you take in the beauty of the compound? Did you see the flowers, the sculptures, the design, the architecture? And he's like, no, I was focusing on the spoon, so I didn't pay attention to anything else. And he tells him, now do the same thing you did, but now pay attention to your surroundings, the beauty, everything. He goes, he comes back, and he spilt what's on the spoon. And he tells him, once you figure out how to balance the two, to be able to focus on what your goal is, which is the spoon, but to also be able to enjoy and be present throughout the process, to experience everything around you fully, that's when you find happiness. I think that's a great idea, because I think we get caught up in this thing of chasing money, chasing success, that we are no longer present in the everyday moment, and we lose that. And we get to the point where we're 50, and let's say you are lucky enough to make all the money that you want to make and the success that you want to achieve, but you realize that you weren't present, that you weren't there for all the moments, your kids' birthdays, you weren't there to enjoy all the fun, all the people around you, and you've missed out on your life because you're chasing a goal. Or the opposite of that is basically you're just living, you're just there every day, but you weren't chasing anything larger than you. And so both are bad, but you have to find the middle ground between both to kind of live a fulfilling and happy life. The third idea that he gives you is basically that there's a cost to pursuing your dreams. Is it worth losing everything that you lose to achieve your dreams? I think before you answer that, you have to tackle, is your dream, right? Because some people they buy into the marketing that they're fed by the world, because the world is trying to market things to you. Success, money, freedom, fame. And so you have to be able to look inwards and find what you actually want to do. And once you find that, the question comes now, so is it worth everything that you lose? And so in the book, Santiago himself, before he chases his dreams, he has a girl, a love interest, that he has to leave behind in a continent to go find his treasure, his dream in a different continent. What are you a slave to, right? Because if you're not a slave to your dream, you're going to be a slave to something. Either your urges, are you going to end up becoming hedonistic and just following pleasure, chasing money, chasing recognition? So what are you going to basically chase? And whatever you choose to chase means whatever you say yes to. If you say yes to everything that brings you closer to your goals, you have to say no to everything else that distracts you or pulls you away from that path. And so I believe that's the cost. And I think it's a worthy cost. I think to live life and not to explore all the untapped potential that you have inside you, to do what you are best at, what you enjoy, what you can do to make a difference, and what you can earn rewards for, either monetary or whatever you think is worth your effort. I think if you don't do those 4 things in your life, you haven't lived life, you haven't been there, you haven't experienced what it is to be alive. And so a part of that is being able to chase your dreams regardless of what you lose behind. Because if you don't, you'll end up living a life filled with regret. What could have been, what you could have done. And that brings me to the 4th point, which is one of the traps that we end up mostly, especially today, is this idea of living in the daydream of if you made it. So daydreaming about your dreams could end up becoming the barrier for you to actually start and pursue your dreams. And we see this in the book when Santiago meets a man that he has to work for some time. And he talks to this man, and this man also had dreams of moving away and going far away to Mecca. And that's his whole dream, essentially, just going there because of religious reasons and all these other reasons. But he doesn't do it because he's become stuck in a system, in a loop of life. He's making money, he has a business, and he doesn't want to take that risk, but also he's scared to actually find out of how good it would actually feel if he achieved his dreams. Which brings me to the next idea, which is what's more important? The process of which you immerse yourself in, or the outcome? And I think we're in a very outcome-oriented society or world that we live in today. Everyone wants to see the outcome, the achievements, but no one really cares for the process, the behind the scenes. We've lost the love for that process, and I think it's important that we think about what's more important. I think the whole point of the book, The Alchemist, the title itself, The Alchemist, is the process of alchemy, the pseudoscience of alchemy, which is, in Paulo Coelho's words, is more about becoming the alchemist, becoming someone who has the skills and the ability, embracing the process rather than chasing the goal of achieving, let's say, changing copper into gold. But it's about learning and being that process and becoming the person that can do that more than actually doing it. And I think us as human beings, I believe it's more important to immerse yourself in the process of tapping into the potential that you have as a person, because to act is to be, to do is to be. What you do is who you are, and not the other way around. I think in today's world we care more about identity and finding yourself and figuring out who you are and doing all this introspection, but your character is built from what you do consistently. Do you do the things that you say you want to more than you actually just think about it and think that this is something that you want? Because if you say that you want to become a football player, for example, but you do not consistently do the actions and put in the action every day, then you are not a football player. Because what we see when we see that someone is something, it's because of the effort or the work that they've done to get there. And so the process allows you to become something that you're not. I think change is something inherently important to us being human beings, because without being able to adapt and change, we wouldn't survive. It's our most important skill. And so immersing yourself in a process allows you to tap into that ability to change and to become something else, to grow as a person, which is why I think the idea that he sets, that the process is more important than even the outcome. People care about, for example, I'm making content, and I care about how can I produce the best content possible that I think I can make, and being confused by things like the success that it brings, the views, the success, the numbers. It's all just a distraction compared to how much effort am I putting into what I'm doing, and how much do I care about what I'm producing and what I'm giving out to the world. And I think people are scared of that because they think it's difficult. It is difficult, and I think that's the point. If your dreams are what, your purpose is what makes your life valuable, don't you think it will take everything in your life to achieve it, which makes it worthwhile? It takes your life for you to achieve what gives your life meaning. And for those who have the courage to take the risk and walk in that journey, Paulo Coelho believes, or is trying to convey this idea in the book, that the universe will guide you. It's this idea of where there's a will, there's a way. But also, more than that, it's that the universe itself is this living, breathing thing that communicates to you, that supports you, that gives you hints of where you're supposed to go. For example, me with this making content thing, right? I had so many different hurdles, different barriers. I didn't have a tripod, I didn't have a camera, I didn't have this and that. But when you have the will to do these things, you'll find solutions. Now, I'm not trying to say that the universe or God, there's this thing that is watching over you, that is guiding you and helping you get there, but you have to be delusional to think that the universe itself wants you to succeed and that you have the ability to achieve these things. The last idea that he conveys, or that I want to tackle, is this idea of paralysis by analysis. You just have to be able to start. And I think this book was very instrumental for me starting this content creation journey and trying to share my ideas on the internet, because if you take all your time just trying to figure out all the details and try to perfect it, you will never actually start. You have to learn on the go. And this is like an entrepreneurial kind of ideology, even, that you learn from testing with your users. You have to learn as much as possible, as fast as possible, by getting feedback. But you cannot get feedback if you actually do not start the process. So take that first step, take the leap of faith and get into it. And take the first steps. Because if you don't, you'll be stuck daydreaming, thinking of what can be, how perfect it could be. But that unrealized potential will remain unrealized if you do not take the first step. And just to wrap it all up, you have to be scared, or you have to have a fear in you of not achieving your dreams, of living a life where you do not chase your dreams. And I think in the world that we live in today, if you do not chase your own dreams, you'll be used as a tool to actualize someone else's dreams. And if that does not sit right with you, then start today. Take the first step today. Do that one thing you're scared of, that you're scared of the judgment that people will give you if you do. I think, especially as a Gen Z, we have these things, these concepts that we think are very just light or normal, like cringe or being corny. But these are hindrances put in place societally so that we do not do things that we think we are good at, or things that we think that we enjoy, or things that we think are our dreams. Because no one these days, it doesn't seem cool to chase your dreams and to take that risk and to fail, because you will fail, but you have to keep moving forward, and that's okay. And so I think you should read the book if you're someone looking for the motivation, the clarity on if this is something that, whatever you want to do, if it's something that you should do or you should start. The answer will never reveal itself in the absence of the effort, in the absence of the process, of the action. You will only realize if this is something that you want to do or not, or something that's valuable or worth your time, if you actually get into the process and take the first steps. And so I think it's a wonderful book, wonderful first read, very easy to get into, very easy to read. It's not too complicated, it's not that big. So if you're also looking into getting into reading and books, please give this book a chance, and I hope you enjoy. Anyways, I'm happy to be able to share these thoughts with you. I hope you were able to get something from it. Let me know what you think in the comments. And yeah, I hope you have a lovely day wherever you are. Goodbye.